This is the Electric Bike Action Podcast, devoted to all things on two wheels, and sometimes three, with an electric motor. Electric Bike Action magazine is a print and digital magazine that reviews bikes and shares the latest news about e-bikes. I'm Tony Donaldson, the editor of the magazine and the host of this podcast. Be sure to give us a thumbs up and, if you like, a review to help us reach more people. You can also check out our website, electricbikeaction.com, and check out our Facebook page and Instagram account.
Hello, everyone. This episode comes on the tail of Tesla's incredible new battery technology that will change the way lithium-ion batteries are made. The new cells, called 4680 because they're 46 millimeters wide and 80 millimeters tall, feature a great number of design and material changes that will cut out cobalt, an expensive material in terms of cost of mining, the danger involved, and the carbon footprint of shipping it around the world to produce batteries. The materials can be sourced locally instead of globally, and the batteries provide greater range and power, as well as dropping the overall production cost of a car battery by 56%. Yes, that is less than half the price. This will definitely trickle down to bikes and other modes of transportation. For this episode, we're talking to Ravi Kempaiah, a friend and world record holder for the longest distance traveled on an e-bike, as well as two more pending for the most distance traveled in 12 and 24 hours on an e-bike. He's working on his PhD in energy storage materials at the University of Illinois at Chicago. That is, he's a proper expert in the field of batteries. We get into the weeds on this exciting new technology that will change the game for electric vehicles. As a side note, I apologize for the sound quality of this episode not being as good as it usually is with Skype. An update on Skype broke my recording software, so we had to improvise a little bit. Without further ado, here's Ravi. Hey, Ravi, how are you?
Hi, Tony. Good to be here. I'm good. How are you doing?
Doing very well. Busy and crazed as usual, but just completely shocked and surprised by the presentation that Elon Musk gave for Tesla's Battery Day, and I'm so excited to talk to you about this right now. I know there's a ton to unpack, but I can't wait to hear what you have to say about this.
Sure. It was one of the most anticipated events in the history of Tesla. It was supposed to be, it was scheduled last spring, and then they rescheduled it, and then the COVID came around, and so finally they did it, and there was so much hype around it. It was just unbelievable. But what they did present did live up to the hype, and I believe this is the iPhone moment for the electric vehicles. 2007, when Jobs unveiled iPhone, the whole design, there were still some big names like Nokia and Motorola and even HTC and other brands, and even Kodak was still in business manufacturing cameras. But Nokia and Kodak, as they're not operating in the market anymore, at least as we know it. And similarly, this is truly a revolutionary moment, because what they presented is transformational in a fundamental way. Lithium-ion batteries were designed in a particular way for the last 30 years, since Sony commercialized the design in 1991 using Professor Goodenough's cathode. The fundamental architecture of the cell design remained the same. And there were lots of improvements in the anode side and the cathode side and the electrolyte side and all of that, of course, in the supply chain. But there was not a fundamental rewrite of the architecture. Just like, phones always had. It reminds me of BlackBerry's response to iPhone. They said, nobody is going to use touchscreen. The keyboard will still be there. Similarly, and then BlackBerry is, it's not a big company anymore. Similarly,
right.
There are automakers right now, if they don't focus seriously on EVs, they will completely be oblivious in a few years, just because this will change the equation so drastically and fundamentally, because the cost of batteries right now, even some of the big names at the pack level, not at the cell level, but at the pack level, we're talking about $140 per kilowatt hour. And that's,
you're saying $140?
$140 per kilowatt hour. So that's like, if for e-bike audience, it's like two Bosch batteries combined, the capacity, that's 1 kWh. But for an automaker, because they put out batteries in tons and tons, the cost will come out to be $150, $140 per kilowatt hour at the pack level. And what Tesla presented is going to bring that cost down to $75 per kilowatt hour. At $75 per kilowatt hour, whatever you do to the gasoline supply chain, the manufacturing, it just won't be competitive enough. And as everyone knows, the motor has so much less moving parts to it compared to a gasoline engine. So the service life is much, much higher. And once the batteries are not only $75 per kilowatt hour, but it will last, let's say, 500,000 miles, then there's absolutely no way any company can sustain manufacturing gasoline engines. But there's a big but, that is to ramp up the production capacity right now from the levels that we have right now to the levels that are projected by Tesla in the battery day presentation needs enormous change in the supply chain. To have a fundamental great design is one thing, but if you don't have the supply chain ready, it's like the bicycle industry right now. There's a big demand, but the supply chain is so constricted right now and everybody's facing shortage. Similarly, Tesla will have to solve this. And I think we can go through some of these parameters and factors in detail, but I'm excited to talk to you about it because, as I said, this is going to be the iPhone moment for electric vehicles and will fundamentally transform transportation as we know it.
I completely agree. And I think that, just some of the concepts that are touched on there, bringing the cost down that much, having these vehicles that are, virtually maintenance free, that are going to last a lot longer. I'm excited about. I wanted to talk about some of the materials going into this, the changes that they've made in that, the fact that it's going to be far more environmentally friendly, more or less locally sourced for a lot of the materials, which is pretty amazing. I mean, getting the lithium from Nevada as opposed to, where do they get it from now? I mean, where's most of the lithium in the world mined?
So most of the lithium right now is mined in South America, in Bolivia, in Chile. And this is exactly what Elon was talking about in the battery day presentation. That is, if you put a camera in one of the molecules of these battery materials, it will go around the globe 2 times. And it is absolutely insane that it has to go around the globe 2 times to be able to to be put into a battery pack. And if you can cut it down, that's the goal. That's why they're opening Tesla GIGA Austin, and they're opening, Berlin, Tesla GIGA Berlin. What this does is basically completely short circuit the supply chain in such a way that instead of going from China back to Nevada and then going all around, it'll be going from Nevada to GIGA Austin. From GIGA Austin, right there, they will have the Cybertruck plant, and then it will go into the vehicles. So that is how they're able to. That is just one aspect of how they're able to bring the cost down. Right now, supply chain, for example, 60 to 70% of the cobalt that are used in every electronic equipment, whether it is MacBook or iPhone, Samsung, laptop, doesn't matter. They all use lithium cobalt oxide cathode, which was discovered by Professor Goodenough, and that is coming from a single place in Africa called Democratic Republic of Congo. That's why removing cobalt has been extremely critical for the success of these companies, because there are not only the commercial aspect but also the ethical aspects of it. The mines that are in operation in Congo right now employ child labor, and the families live on less than $1 per day and eat only 1 meal a day, and all that horrible stuff.
Oh, and the conditions that they work in, I've seen photographs of this. It's dangerous work.
Absolutely. So that is why now they're shifting away from cobalt-based chemistry to nickel-based chemistry. And nickel-based chemistry has its own set of challenges. And another thing is there's not much nickel because nickel mining is very energy intensive. It needs thousands and thousands of liters of water to be able to mine, few maybe kilograms of nickel. But basically what I mean to say is it's extremely energy intensive, and it is to an extent environmentally unfriendly. And that's why Elon also insisted that please, if you are a nickel miner, and if you can mine nickel in an eco-conscious way, we will give you a giant contract. And he has said this publicly on many different occasions. So it's like going from cobalt to nickel, completely nickel-based, will create another kind of supply chain problems. And that is one of the reasons, if you look at the presentation, the fourth aspect, the first aspect was cell design, the second aspect of cell factory, how they're going to use high-bar system, the Maxwell system, the automation, and then how they're able to use just one line to produce 10 gigawatt hours and 7 times the output. And the third category was anode materials, and fourth was cathode. And in the fourth aspect, they talk about diversification, and they talk about lithium iron phosphate, and that's going to go in the $25,000 car mass market, and with a decent range. And then for higher, for the medium tier vehicles such as Tesla Model 3, or to a certain extent Model S, they will move towards nickel and manganese chemistry. And then for the high energy density applications like the semi-truck, they're going to go to high nickel content, because energy density is extremely important for semi-truck, because every kg you add in the form of battery pack, you have to reduce 1 kilogram in the cargo weight. And if you have a massive battery pack, then you have to reduce the cargo weight by that much, and that defeats the purpose of a semi-truck. So only for those applications, they're going to go to high nickel cathode. And so everybody thought lithium iron phosphate, is not for the EVs, but BYD is one of the biggest manufacturers of, as you know, in China, and they primarily use lithium iron phosphate for their buses and taxis and all of that. Now Tesla is going to have a high volume production of lithium iron phosphate because there's no constraint on iron, it is abundantly available. So diversifying the cathode side will give them huge boost in terms of being able to produce a mass market car at $25,000 and another medium range sedan at $35,000-$40,000, and then the truck at a much higher price point and energy density of the cathode.
How much do you think that is, when the semi actually comes out, it seems to me that this is going to fundamentally change the trucking industry as far as like shipping things, because I mean, for the long haul truckers, they're going to have to use petroleum based vehicles because of potentially how long it would take to charge these. But for the shorter modalities, it seems like this is really going to change the way people move products around.
I agree, but what they unveiled in the battery day, the cell design, is actually going to enable fast charging of semi-trucks. And they're not there. There's a new term that they coined. It's called mega chargers. Right now, if you have a level 1 charger, for an electric car, that's pretty slow. Level 2, you can charge it in 4 or 5 hours, maybe 6 hours. And then you have superchargers, Tesla superchargers. And that's going to charge your electric car in about 30 minutes to 40 minutes. That's pretty decent. Now you will have mega chargers. Mega chargers will charge the entire truck in about 40 minutes. That is possible only because of the new cell design. And if you look into this new cell design, it's 46 by 80, 46 millimeters in diameter, 80 millimeters in height. And they've changed the manufacturing process and the way and the design itself in such a way that you can extract power at a rate that is 6 times more than the existing rate right now. So if you can extract lithium ions that much faster, you can also pump in lithium ion that much faster. And they will have some, of course, they'll have some advanced thermal management systems. And because they're going to increase the power density of these batteries in 4680 form factor by 6 times, now you can use 1.6 megawatts of power to charge the semi-truck. And even so, that's supposed to have 1 megawatt hour. So it basically 10 Tesla Model S packs combined will provide a long-range semi-truck range, equivalent range. So to charge 10 Tesla Model S in 30 to 40 minutes means massive amounts of power. So these mega chargers will have a different charging protocol and hardware, and they can do the stuff. And the clever design in 4680 is that they go from tab design to tabless design. Tabless design changes things in an enormous way. One is you can increase, so you can extract heat. And first of all, it doesn't. So right now, the reason why it heats up, people who own Nissan Leaf can understand this very well. If you drive Nissan Leaf on a highway at 65 miles, 70 miles an hour for 45 minutes to an hour, and then you want to charge right away, the system will warn you. And it will say, don't charge right now, wait until the battery pack cools down. Because
Right.
that heat generated, because there are small tabs that have to come out. I mean, even though the Leaf uses pouch or prismatic cell design, still there's a thermal bottleneck, and it causes energy, wastage of energy. But in this case, in the 4680, the electrons have much less conduction pathway. So they reduce the pathway from 250 millimeters to 50 millimeters. As a result, the thermal management is so much easier. Instead of running lasagna type cooling system in what you find in Tesla Model 3 and Model S, there's perforated aluminum layers that run between 18650 or 2170 cells, and then you pass glycol cooling liquid to extract heat out of this. And in the tabless design, only the bottom plate will be cool, because that's where majority of the heat and the electrons are moving out, and you can extract heat much more effectively in this actual design. So that will change the thermal management significantly, and also enable these cells to be charged at extremely fast rate. All of that is it's a brilliant master plan. Once they can get this actualized in big volume, then semi-truck, cyber-truck will be possible. I think that's what people are most excited about.
Oh, it's just absolutely amazing. I mean, what I want to know is who was the genius behind this design?
I believe it is a whole team. Drew Baglino was the head of the engineering team, and it is not just one person, right? It is a whole team of people, and
Yeah.
the patent, what they, it's by a couple of people in the Fremont office, or maybe in the R&D. They came up with a tabless design, and then iteration after iteration, they improved, refined the design. I think it is right now they already have a pilot plant that is producing 1 gigawatt hours. So they know exactly how to make this in volume, how to get the best performance out of these cells, because they're already doing it in the pilot plant and at the Cathode Road. So I guess, it looks genius. I mean, but nobody had done it until now, and it looks simple. And that's the beauty of it. It is elegant, simple, and it changes a lot of things. So it's really amazing.
It absolutely is, and I remember the podcast interview that I did with Professor Jeff Don, he was talking about, all of these goals that they had as far as, eliminating the cobalt and, coming up with better designs and getting that battery price down to where it was game changing. And I think that is what Tesla has done with this. It will make it very compelling to switch from a gas powered car to an electric car.
Absolutely. We are witnessing that transition moment. It's super exciting to be part of it. And Professor Don has been doing amazing work in terms of cathodes and electrolytes. And the paper that they released last year was one of the milestone papers. So that is actually going into the energy products. Tesla's energy division also consumes a lot of batteries. So the work done at Dalhousie is making a lot of changes in the field. In fact, the high nickel content cathode design or cathode work, I believe most of it is done at Dalhousie by the team led by Professor Don. And it eliminates the cobalt. In fact, they wrote a paper. It became a sensation in the research community. These cobalt needed in nickel-rich positive electrode materials in batteries and lithium-ion batteries that use high nickel content. And they proved that cobalt is not necessary. The exact title is cobalt needed in nickel-rich positive electrode materials for lithium-ion batteries. They clearly show that cobalt is not needed, and that is also one of the big critical point in this whole process, which is once you remove the cobalt, basically you save a lot of money, and of course you don't have to worry about cobalt mining, refining, and all of that.
And shipping that product halfway around the world.
Exactly. It goes from Congo to China, where it is processed, and then from China back to US, and then in the Gigafactory, they have to repack it into NCA. Panasonic does that. So that brings the capex cost so much down, and I think it makes a lot of difference. It's a massive team effort. All the 5 aspects that they unveiled, which is the cell design, cell factory, anode materials, cathode materials, and finally the vehicle integration. It doesn't, they need huge number of people. I believe it's one of the reasons they insisted, they emphasized this in the presentation, that they need thousands and thousands of people to work at the Austin factory, Berlin factory, the new factory in Fremont, because to produce 1 or 10 terawatt hours, the amount of material, the amount of manpower it takes is just unbelievable. 1 terawatt hour right now, it's at the Gigafactory can produce, they're expecting 150 gigawatt hours. It operates at around 35 to 40 maybe gigawatt hours. And in full capacity, it is supposed to run at 150 gigawatt hours. But going from that, hundreds of gigawatt hours to 1 terawatt hour, it needs massive changes in the supply chain. Who's going to produce nickel, that much nickel? Who's going to produce the electrolyte? Who's going to produce the copper? Who's going to produce aluminum sheets, the cell housing, and all of these, right? So unless you ramp up the whole supply chain, they will run into the same issue that the e-bike industry is facing right now. Everybody in the US wants e-bikes right away. There's a huge demand, but there's a huge backlog. Trek, Specialized, Giant, they're all sold out and they're waiting because the supply chain is not ready. So Tesla is addressing this challenge at a multi-level, and they're actually not going to be too dependent on some of these vendors, because they're going to get into nickel cathode production, some nickel sulfate. They highlighted in the presentation, and then they're going to get into lithium production. They just signed a deal with a Colorado-based company. It has some locations in North Carolina, and of course they found a new place in Nevada that produces enough lithium. So they're trying to make sure the supply chain bottlenecks are minimized, and they're integrating this new design. It's a brilliant idea. However, there are lots of changes. If Elon says, in Elon's time, if he says 3 years, in a normal human time, it is 5 to 6 years.
Sure.
But 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 it is truly remarkable. I mean, I'm just glad that a company like that exists, because to think of the problem and the scale that they're thinking about just needs massive amount of engineering and finance. They're looking at I don't know, I forgot the number, several, maybe close to $1 trillion worth of investment going into these factories to get to that 1 terawatt hour capacity. So, 10 terawatt hour capacity. So, it's going to take some time, but on the way, it will change the electric vehicle landscape, the transportation landscape completely.
Oh, absolutely. Let me ask you to clarify something. So when you say 150 gigawatt hours, is that putting out 150 gigawatts of batteries in an hour?
No, per year, and I don't think it is per. Right now, as I remember, back in 2018 and 2019, the Gigafactory in Nevada was operating at around 35 to 40 gigawatt hours per year.
Okay.
And just to give you an idea of the scale of energy problem that we are talking about, to really move into sustainable future, you live in LA, right?
Yes.
And if you put all the batteries in the world, every single one of them, and make a big giant battery out of it, every single battery, electric car, laptop, phones, everything into one single device, that won't be able to power Los Angeles for more than maybe an hour or two.
Wow.
That's just Los Angeles, right? Now to run the entire nation, to move towards sustainable, if you have to go away. So that's why I think there'll always be some oil industry. Of course, all of these involved gasoline cars will be there, but it'll be significantly different. The volumes will be significantly different, all of that. So there's a huge market out there, and the addressable market is, as we said, it's in several terawatt hours of capacity. And there's not enough nickel, there's not enough cobalt that can sustain that kind of volume. So they have to diversify to lithium iron phosphate. They have to diversify towards nickel and manganese, all of that.
Well, and I'm sure they're going to keep working on different formulations to make that even better.
Of course.
So with the new 4680 battery, do you think that Tesla is only going to keep that for themselves, or are they going to offer that to other companies? I'm looking at, I just saw that Amazon placed an order for 100,000 vans from Rivian.
Right. Well, one of the admirable things done at Tesla is that they have open sourced all of their patents. So anybody can look at the patent. I don't know the exact nitty-gritties of the patent, but I don't think many of the patents can be used for free. Of course, maybe some of them have royalty associated with them, but many of them are for free. So it is entirely possible that they will let other people. In fact, Tesla, he stated in the Battery Day presentation that the goal of Tesla is to accelerate the transition to sustainable future, sustainable energy. So that I'm pretty sure that they can help others. But the fact is that they have enough orders for the Cybertruck and the semis and the cars. So whatever they produce is just not enough for their own supply and for their own vehicles. So there's absolutely, I don't think they would sell it to other manufacturers because they just don't have enough for themselves. And if they want, other manufacturers can start their own 4680 formulation and do it. I think that's totally possible. In fact, we may see that GM invested in a huge battery plant near Lordstown, Ohio, in collaboration with LG. So they're talking about the Ultium battery platform, which will be used in the Hummer and Cadillac EVs, all of that. So in that way, it is kind of kindling a change in every other automaker. If that's exactly what Elon was saying. If other companies don't do this, they won't survive. It is exactly what Apple was saying back then to Nokia and then BlackBerry. If you don't do certain things the way we do, vertical integration, they brought the iOS platform, they got the music integration, they got App Store. App Store was a big deal. And once they brought all of the ecosystem into one place, the other people just couldn't survive. Similarly, if other companies right now don't do that vertical integration, think about massive supply chain, improvisations and design changes and all of, and of course, investing capital. And if they don't do that, they will become Nokia and BlackBerry of the automotive world.
I completely agree. So, do you think that the 4680 is too big to go into electric bikes as far as making batteries for them? And the reason, let me back this up. The reason I ask that is most of the industry has been using 18650 cells, but I know that Giant, for their custom battery for their Yamaha-based sync drive system, switched to using 21700 cells.
Right. Well, there are a couple of companies that are doing that. Some of the BMZ batteries are 21700. Some of the BH bikes with a big down tube 700 watt hour batteries, they use 21700. There's a company called Trend Power. Trend Power supplies batteries to many of the e-bike OEMs. They use 21700. Going from 18650 to 21700 doesn't fundamentally change the energy density. What changes is the amount of energy, of course, but the energy density is different. And if you're looking at an electric car, for example, in the Model S, you have 8,000 cells, and that goes to 4,700 something around that number for the Model 3. So if it goes from 8,000 plus to 4,000 plus, then you have almost 4,000 less welding points. You have to less 4,000 points, and the number of cell caps and cell housings also will reduce by that much amount, almost 33%. And of course, the filling process, electrolyte filling process, all of that also will reduce by. So that's a big difference. But in terms of cost, some of the e-bike OEMs may not be able to realize the big cost difference going from 18650 to 21700 because they're not operating at that scale. I mean, if that was the case, I'm pretty sure some of the big names like Bosch and Yamaha would switch to 21700 in a heartbeat. At the end of the day, it's a business for them. But right. I think as they secure more manufacturing power at one of their factories, maybe switching to 21700 would make sense a little bit. Going back to your question, 4680, it'll be funny because, right now a Bosch power pack has 10S, 4P, 10 series and 4 parallel configuration, right? And if you go to 4680, you just need one 10S, that's it. You don't need parallel configuration. You just need 10 cells, 10 4680 cells should give you enough range as much range as the Bosch PowerPack 500. And that's crazy to think, but that will need re-engineering of the cell, the design and casing and all of that. So to get the full benefit of 4680, you have to use a few hundreds of those cells, and you have to have the scale, basically.
Okay. That makes sense. And besides that, 10 cells for that would be, what is that, 800 millimeters? Yeah, that's not that long.
Well, if you stack them side by side, oh yeah, if there has to be some clever, cell design engineering, cell fabrication
Sure.
engineering, and it is possible to do it. But I don't think any of the e-bike OEMs will be able to get their hands on 4680 for the next 4 or 5 years, unless they come up with their own and do their tab design, and optimize the tabless design, and get it. So I don't think we will see in the e-bike space, at least for the next 3 to 4 years.
All right. Okay. Wow. Thank you very much for the deep dive on all this. And it's just, I'm so excited about this technology, and I'm so excited what we're going to see over the next couple of years with this. And it was funny to me that, I understand why Tesla stock dropped a little bit, because he pushed back like how long it's going to take to scale up. But I'm super excited about this news.
I agree. Oh, well, Tony, I can't tell you how exciting it is to be part of this. I only wish I had invested in some Tesla stocks last year. When we were in Halifax last year, in August 2019, the stock price was $220. Okay, and then it shot up to $2,000. So, in hindsight, everything looks different. But I think there's a big future ahead, and I'm also excited about their silicon design, the new anode design that they're talking about. Tesla is talking about a new anode architecture. Everybody is using graphite, and they're going to move towards silicon. Moving towards silicon, the cost will be unbelievably low, because silicon is one of the most abundantly available material from dirt, with the sand, silicon, right?
Yes.
So going from, so right now it costs them anywhere from $6 to $7 per kilowatt hour just for the material, and they're thinking of going to $1.2 per kilowatt hour. I mean, that kind of change. That is. So the interesting fact, one of some of the technology in that design is by a company out of Colorado. So that's exciting. They have a local technology partner, and the design that they spoke about, vehicle integration. And did you see the slide where they showed previously all the airplanes had fuel tank in the wings, and then they thought, why not make the wing itself as a fuel tank? And that changed a lot of the things in the airport, aircraft design. And now the packs will be integral part of the vehicle itself. So the polar moment of inertia will be different. So the vehicle will handle better on a racetrack. But I still wonder how they're going to pull off. If there's a problem in the battery, how are they going to fix it? Because then you can't take apart the whole battery. That will be cost prohibitive. So there are certain things. For example, they also then talk about some of the manufacturing challenges, because they have to use technology from Maxwell's. Basically, they're going to use dry battery electrode stuff, and they've not quite gotten it yet. They're on revision number 4. It takes about another 4 to 5 revisions to get there. So, and then the silicon stuff is, while if they can do silicon at $1.2 per kilowatt hour, it is absolutely incredible. But it is a lot of work, because the whole community the research community, Stanford, Berkeley, MIT, and many other places have spent last 15 years trying to get this silicon to work, and it has not been done at a scale that is viable for EVs yet. But what Tesla has proposed, if they do it, that's amazing. But I think that's one of the bottleneck points. It will take some time for them, and then optimize the cathode side, reducing the dry battery electrode stuff, and then of course get all the supply chain partners up to speed and then up to production volume. So all of this will take time, but I think what we will for sure we will see some big changes in 3 to 4 years. And in 3 to 4 years, when we reminisce about this podcast, it'll be fantastic because we will look back and say, "Wow, things have changed quite a bit."
Oh, I can't even imagine that. I mean, I've seen just the changes I've seen in the last 3 or 4 years in the bicycle world as far as e-bikes. I can't imagine what 3 or 4 more years is going to lead to for all of transportation.
What are some of the key things that you have observed, Tony? You are in the e-bike industry much deeper than most people. You have close contacts with manufacturers. How are they trying to embrace this change? Or are they going to adopt some of the new technologies, or are they changing some of the fundamental design in any way?
There's been, I mean, obviously we're having more like higher capacity batteries is becoming the norm, and I think some of that has been the switch to different types of batteries. The manufacturers have become very good at making the programming, even for the hardware and the motors, far more efficient, and seeing some of the changes in the hardware design of the motors has really been a positive thing for that. Bosch has gone through, in the past couple of years, they've gone through several different generations of their motors, and now their new ones have 10 more Newton meters that they just added through a software update. So just seeing that kind of thing, and then seeing the big manufacturers get into it and bring these fantastic, the proven geometry that they've got for their bikes, just to make all the bikes so much better. And seeing, I mean, basically, I don't think there's any big manufacturer that doesn't make an e-bike. Santa Cruz was the last holdout, it seemed like, and they were like very anti e-bike, and now they've said, now that they've introduced the Heckler, their fantastic mountain bike, they have said that probably within 5 years, half of their catalog will be e-bikes.
That's amazing. I think it's really amazing. The market will be, when you look back and looking at 2010 and 2020, in 10 years, e-bike market has gone from zero to through the roof from 2010 to 2020. Now, 2020 to 2030, wow, that's going to be some significant change in the market adoption.
Oh, I completely agree. And I think, the switch to more electric vehicles includes, cars and bicycles as well, and other forms of transportation that we may not even know about yet. I've seen a lot of scooters, both the, little stand on them kind of scooters and the Vespa style scooters that are fantastic. And over the past 6 months, I've had the chance to spend a lot of time on 2 different electric motorcycles, the Zero SRS and the Harley Davidson Livewire, and just incredible bikes to ride, just so much fun. And now I'm I'm on pins and needles waiting for Damon Motorcycles to bring down one of their bikes.
Wow! Yeah,
because
the electric motorcycles, e-bikes.
It's happening faster than people thought it would, I think.
Right, and COVID only accelerated this transition.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. I know a lot of bike shop owners around the country, and they cannot keep bikes in stock. And it's funny, I was talking to a friend of mine that works at Yamaha on the motorcycle side. They don't have anything electric in that division, and he's saying that just their regular gas-powered motorcycles are selling as fast as they can make them.
Wow.
So, and rumor has it that they should have an electric dirt bike out by the end of the year.
That would be fantastic. I mean, Yamaha is getting big time into electric bikes. Their mountain bike, Yamaha New Moro, Is that right? And
the YDX Moro and the Moro Pro, and I've spent a bit of time on those over the past couple of weeks, and they are really fantastic. And I don't know if you've noticed the dual twin design on the frame, but it's pretty unique.
In what way does it improve the e-bike aspect of
it makes it a couple of different ways. It makes it very stiff, which means that the suspension can be more effective. But the other thing is where the top tube is, they've attached the rear suspension in the middle of the two top tubes, which means that there's a lower standover height. The bike is more out of your way, like you don't hit your knees on the top tube like you would on some other bikes. It really makes it nice, and they really did their homework on every aspect of that. The suspension is fantastic, highly tunable. The drivetrain is perfectly mated for that, and they've actually done tweaks on the programming to make it specific to that bike. And so it's been a really good experience riding that bike.
Excellent. I can't wait to test one.
You definitely should.
Sure. And just a small thought that came into my mind. I think this is a time, if there are investors and other venture capitalists or anybody listening to this podcast, this might be the time to invest in companies that are actually fueling the growth of, or fueling this revolution of electric transportation. For example, companies that make nickel, companies that make lithium, companies that make electrolytes, companies that make the cell housing for these batteries, and these kind of companies, because the demand is only going to go higher and higher and higher. So I think these are the companies to watch out for and be to keep an eye on, and that benefits the stock shareholder, and it benefits the industry because it's a win-win for everybody.
It just makes it all grow that much faster. All right. Well, Ravi, thank you very much for taking time out to talk to us again, and really appreciate all of your insights on this stuff. I mean, you are right in the middle of all of it.
Well, thank you, Tom. Thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure. You have been a great friend over the years, helped me in so many different ways, and it's only my pleasure to contribute in any way I can. And hopefully, you will have the front row seats to all of this, and I look forward to reading all of these new technologies in your magazine.
Well, thanks, Ravi. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Tim. Take care.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Electric Bike Action Podcast. For the latest reviews and information, visit electricbikeaction.com, subscribe to our podcast on iTunes or Stitcher or Google or wherever you get your podcasts, and give us a rating and review to help spread the word about e-bikes. You can also email me at tonyd@hightorque.com. That's TONYD at hi-torque.com. I'm happy to answer questions and would love to hear your experiences and adventures on e-bikes. This podcast is powered by Callcast.